Hey everyone, Skull902 here. The second Skull902 Racing League season is in progress, and I figured I'd take a moment to explain some of the rules and season structure so that you guys can get familiar with how this year's streams are going to go and what's at stake. As we did last year, this season we've been playing Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, or ASRT, as well as introduced a new category in Team Sonic Racing, or TSR. As of the day this video is posted, here are the relevant general rules, as well as those for ASRT and TSR. No competition will be played with any less than 4 actively competing players. Those who haven't opted out will be considered absent for however many races they miss out on, in which case, they'll be awarded last place points for each track they miss. If the amount of sign-ups for a competition exceeds that of the game's lobby limit, the extra players will be considered reserves for players that may have to opt out. However, if that number reaches up to 14 players total, then the competition will be played under a split bracket format, with 2 sides of players competing across 6 tracks, the top 4 from each side moving on to the main competition, which will determine a winner. Points for both games will be counted manually on a 6-point scale. In competitions with more than 6 players, any placing below 5th will result in 1 point being awarded. In order to maintain sportsmanship, tactics such as targeting, camping, and pinning are not allowed. Violating these rules will result in last place points for competitors or a warning for agitators on the first instance, and disqualification/removal on the second. Upon the second instance within the same season, a player will be suspended, or given automatic last place points, in the first 3 tracks of their next competition. Should it happen a third time, they'll be DQ'd for the rest of the season. Agitators are non-competing players that have previously won a competition and qualified for the playoffs, or, during playoff competitions, a non-competing player who failed to qualify, participating in races as an obstacle for the competing players. Agitators for each game will be allowed starting with their respective 4th competition. If a single player disconnects by network error or power surge, that will result in the competitor receiving last place points for that race. If their controller disconnects, they will have the choice to opt out for last place points or attempt to reconnect and finish. Widespread network errors will result in a game being replayed if a third of the lobby disconnects. Catastrophic glitches, such as a CPU glitching to finish the race before it should be, or a player racing into a complete void from the starting line, will result in a race being replayed. If 2 or more players finish with the exact same time in a race, the race will be replayed with only the tied players actively competing to break the tie. All other players will act as agitators. In the event that the host misses this and the tiebreaker isn't held, all competitors will be retroactively awarded extra points for the tie position, for example 5 points for second place, unless it can be proven that there was a definitive finish. If a miscalculation in the overall standings results in a tie between 2 competitors for first place, the next competition will open with the 2 tied racers competing against each other in the game's tiebreaker track. No event will be scheduled between the hours of 4:30 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. Eastern U.S. time on Tuesdays and Thursdays, as these times are typically when Steam performs maintenance, disrupting the ability to play online. All competitions must have a designated statistician/scorekeeper keeping track of the race results via screenshot after each race and compiling them into the official standings. Players must report the place they finished with upon crossing the finish line, as shown to them by the results screen. A maximum lobby for this game is 10 players, and we are playing on the Steam version. Races will be played on B class. There will be 8 races played in a competition. Any ties in the standings after 8 tracks will be broken in a 9th race, to be played on Race of Ages. For character selection, when signups are going on, players will pick a character. Players must stick with the character they choose during signups during the duration of a competition. Changing mods between races is allowed. During signups, claiming a character is first come, first served, as ASRT does not allow players to pick the same character. A maximum lobby for this game is 12 players, and we are playing on the Steam version. Races will be played on normal difficulty. As with ASRT, there will be 8 races played in a competition, with tiebreakers to be played on Dark Arsenal. Races will be played under standard rules, everyone for themselves. For character selection, since there are 3 racer types, speed, technique, and power, everyone will be allowed to select a main character and a backup character during signups. The 2 characters picked will be the only ones a player is allowed to use for the duration of a competition. Backup characters will be allowed to be used on up to 3 of the 8 tracks per competition. players will need to inform the other competitors before they switch. Duplicates are fine for both main and backup characters, but those using the same character must have a noticeably different paint job from players using the same character. Paint jobs must be submitted to the party before the day of the competition. Changing parts and paint jobs between races will be allowed so long as it's chosen from the loadout presets in lobby. If two players are using the same character, the player switching paint jobs will have to declare that they're switching, and must note the primary color they'll be using so as to maintain contrast with the other player. For example, if one Sonic player's car is mainly colored blue, the others will have to be a different color. Since the number of players can be controlled in the lobby, there will be no CPUs. As we plan on running one-offs in other games, racing and non-racing alike, different rule sets may, and obviously will in the case of non-racing games, apply. For those rules, we recommend you check out our Discord server as they'll be posted when the events are set up. Link is active for 1 week and will be in the description. Let's get into the structure of the season. There are 3 parts to the proceedings: the regular season, the ASRT and TSR championships, and the Grand Championship. In the regular season, there will be 8 competitions in each game to determine qualifiers for that game's championship competition, which serve as the first round of the playoffs. The playoffs begin with the ASRT and TSR championships. The top 4 players, the champion and 3 wildcards, from both of these competitions will move on to the Grand Championship, so long as they're eligible. Between 5 and 8 players will qualify. If the top 4 in both games are the same people, the best performing eligible player from either competition will also qualify. Same applies in the case of a non-eligible player finishing in the top 4. Those who play only one of the 2 games will be able to compete for that game's championship, but they'll need to play both games to be eligible to play for the Grand Championship. The finals of the playoffs. 9 tracks will be played across both games, 4 in one game, 5 in another. The game with 5 tracks, or racetrack advantage, will be determined by the champion that performed better in their respective competition. For example, if the TSR champion won with 43 points and the ASRT champion won with 45 points, ASRT would have 5 tracks. If the champion's point total is the same, the combined scores of the wildcard players from each game will be compared to determine racetrack advantage. During the TSR section, players will be allowed to use their backup character, if they have one, on one track. Should there be a tie in the standings after all 9 tracks, a tiebreaker will be played in the game with racetrack advantage, Race of Ages for ASRT, Dark Arsenal for TSR. The winner, along with the 2nd and 3rd place finishers, will be given a medal, with additional prizes such as a customized trophy and cash payouts available, depending on the amount of donations our optional prize pot receives. And there we have it. Now you know how the competitions will go. Maybe. Hopefully I explained things well enough. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. In any case, I hope you're excited for another season of kart racer action, and I'll see you there.